Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. First of all, thanks to everyone who watched my first video on the Manor Park's auction from the weekend where I chose my top 10 picks from the auction. Just before I hit you with the results of those top 10 picks, I just wanted to drop in there that I've got some really sad news coming towards the end of the video, so stay tuned for that and see how I predicted exactly what would happen. Right, for the first of my top 10 picks, I had chosen the Lotus Esprit S4. Now I said that the estimate of 20 to 24 grand seemed to offer great value. The result was 23.5 grand. Now although that places it at the top of its estimate, I still believe the buyer has got a good deal here. Putting this into some kind of context, neither Auto Trader or Piston Heads currently have an S4 for sale. However, Piston Heads has a previous generation SE Turbo with a similar mileage, and it's up for sale at just under 35 grand. For my number 9, I had chosen the Z3M Roadster. Now it came as a real shock that this didn't sell, although it backed up my point on the previous video that these cars, rightly or wrongly, divide opinions. They just don't seem to get the same kind of love that other M cars get. Number 8 on the list was always a certain sell, the Rover Mini Cooper. I said the car looked like great value at an estimate of 6.5 to 7.5 grand, and that was proven to be the case as it sold for just over 8 grand. I wouldn't say this was bargain of the century, however it's probably one of the safest places to keep 8 grand these days. Next up on the list was the pristine and heavily spec'd CLK 500. I'm not surprised that again this one also beat its estimate, being sold for just under 9,000. I think the main issue with this car at this price is that the new owner needs to keep the miles off it in order not to lose any value. The one thing I will say is that it's definitely the chariot of choice for a leisurely Sunday lunch commute next summer. No shocks either with number 6, the Saxo VTR. A nice strong £4,370 after fees is where this deserved to be. A fair price really for a lovely example. Now we come on to the interesting one. At number 5 I picked the Humdrum 986 Boxster 2.5. I said that it would be a bargain and I think I was proved right. This stunning example sold for a mere £4,140 English pounds. Now I said on my last video that these cannot stay this cheap for much longer. The point I'd like to make is that while they're still cheap, they're no doubt going to be bought and not properly maintained. Not many people are going to spend £1 grand or £2 a year on maintenance when the car doesn't cost much more than that to buy. This means that good examples with comprehensive history are going to become more and more hard to come by. And to put it quite simply, that's all it's going to take for the value of these to start climbing. In the meantime, £4 grand is absolutely ridiculous value for such a well sorted Porsche that isn't going to cost the earth to run. At number 4 I had the E46 M3 Cab. Now while I predicted that the Porsche would be sold for buttons, I wasn't expecting this Beamer to go for less than 10 grand if I'm honest. Highly specified, with an interior that doesn't look like it's ever been sat in, this is an awful lot of car for the money. I do feel like the bottom has fallen out of the market for E46s though. They used to be helped by the later 3 and 4 Series M cars becoming bigger, heavier and less of an engaging drive. But I think the introduction of the 2 Series M cars has weirdly seemed to have had an impact on these, especially as the M2s are becoming more and more affordable. Now for the top 3. No surprise that the Aston sold. For some reason the sold figure hasn't been disclosed though, not sure whether it's a deal that's been had following the auction. But if you were there or watched it live, please leave a comment below and tell me what happened. Now for the result that absolutely broke my heart. In at number 2 I had the W124 300E 4MATIC. I didn't choose this because I thought it would be sold mega cheap. I chose it because I thought it was a splendid, honest example in great condition, and the fact that it's now more rare than hen's teeth. In my mind, I had this car being sold for double what it actually went for. That's right, you're reading that correctly. I've seen much tattier W124s and W210s with 1.8 and 2 litre engines in desperate need of restoration go for more than this. I'm really struggling to understand how this managed to slip through the net. But I suppose that's the beauty of classic car auctions. Forrest Gump, life and boxes of chocolate spring to mind. So now we're at my number one spot, and the car I chose for varying reasons, even though I didn't think many people would have agreed. On one hand, you've got a wonderfully presented Porsche 911 that's had a ton of money recently spent on mechanicals, making it absolutely sound. On the other hand, it's a basic model of water-cooled reject of a 911. Without blowing too much smoke up my own backside, I reckon I got this one spot on. The car sold for a mere 13 grand. For any other 996 Carrera, that's decent value in my opinion, but in this spec, with this history, what a car. To put some perspective onto this, on Auto Trader there's currently an example that's a Category D write-off with 96,000 miles on the clock, poorly modified with hideous black wheels, a flat-bottomed steering wheel and smoked taillights, and that's up for 15.5 grand. Honest, well-maintained and cared for 996s are getting harder and harder to come by, believe me, and the poorly kept examples still seem to be keeping the good ones cheap, but that won't last forever. If you want to check out my more in-depth review on these cars, click on the link that's just popped up in the corner of the screen. Also, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be mixing things up over the next few weeks and I don't want you to miss any of it. Now, on to my greatest prediction of the auction. As you'll see from the description of my channel, I'm a huge Ford fan, and that'll be backed up by anybody that knows me. I've grown up with Fords from a young age. I've twice bought brand new RS models that I saw as my dream cars, and I've even recently bought my first ever classic car, which is a Ford, which I'll be featuring on the channel at some point. Now this auction had 16 Fords going through it, and I didn't choose any of them for my top 10 picks. Seems quite strange really, doesn't it? It absolutely pains me to say this, but I really don't think there's any value in the popular models anymore. I think every ship that's ever had an RS badge on or an XR badge has just sailed into the sunset. Seriously, I genuinely believe the bubble's burst now. Without going into what the reserves actually were on these cars, get a load of this list. Mark III Escort RS 1600i didn't sell. Mark II Escort RS 2000 didn't sell. Mark IV Escort RS Turbo didn't sell. Mark I Fiesta Supersport didn't sell. Sierra XR4i didn't sell. Another RS 1600i Escort didn't sell. An Escort XR3i Cab didn't sell. And finally, another Mark IV Escort RS Turbo didn't sell. In fact, the only Fords that did sell was a kit car, a hot rod, a Fiesta XR2i, which was a Category C write-off, so that went cheap, and two cheap Escorts that were not very inspiring specifications. The only Ford of any note that did really well was the 1972 Cortina GXL. That went for £18,400. I bet my dad liked that one. I would absolutely love nothing more than a mint example late Sapphire Cosworth or a Mark II Fiesta XR2 to keep for myself, but at north of 50 grand for the Sierra and 20 grand for the Fiesta, it's just not happening. So have we seen the summit for fast Fords? Have we perhaps seen the summit for classic cars in general? To be fair, up until Liz Truss walked over the threshold in number 10, the classic car market did go a bit nuts, so maybe it's not surprising it's perhaps levelling out a bit. One final thing from me, I'd love to give a shout out to Manor Park Classics for being kind enough to let me produce these videos. I genuinely believe that they're one of the best auction houses in the UK for classic cars, and as you see in this video, they get some absolute gems flying through under the radar while always having a top-notch selection at every auction they run. Thanks again for watching.